the Dallas Cowboys might be about to make the most aggressive defensive move we have seen in years, and I need you to hear this before the rest of the league catches on. So before we dive into everything, hit that subscribe button, because here at Cowboys Live News we cover every Cowboys update the second it drops, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming out of Combine Week right now. Names like Max Crosby and even Myles Garrett have been floating around in trade speculation. And here is the crazy part: the Cowboys keep getting mentioned as a potential landing spot. Now I want to be very clear with you, because I know how rumors work in this league, and I am not going to sit here and pretend like I have some secret inside source telling me a deal is done. That is not what this is about. What I can tell you is that multiple reports and league insiders have been connecting the dots between Dallas and some of these premier defensive players, and when you look at the situation, it actually makes a lot of sense. Let me break down exactly what is happening and why this matters so much for our Cowboys. First, let us talk about Max Crosby, because his name has been absolutely everywhere over the last few weeks. The Raiders are in a full rebuild situation right now. They have a new regime in place with Clint Kubiak, and when you are starting from scratch like that, you have to make some hard decisions about your roster. Crosby is 29 years old, which means he is still in his prime. He has 32 sacks over the last 3 years, which is absolutely dominant production. And here is what makes him even more attractive: he still has 4 years left on a reasonable contract. So you are not just trading for a rental, you are getting a guy who can anchor your defense for years to come. Now the question becomes, would the Raiders actually trade him? And based on recent reports, it sounds like they might be open to listening. One analyst straight up said that if he was running the Raiders, he would come to the Combine and ask teams for their highest and best offer. That is significant because it tells you the door is at least cracked open. And here is where it gets really interesting for us as Cowboys fans. When people started listing potential destinations for Crosby, one name that kept coming up was Dallas. And the reasoning makes complete sense when you think about it. Look at what the Cowboys have on offense. You have Dak Prescott, who just had another productive season. You have CeeDee Lamb, who is one of the best receivers in football. The offensive firepower is already there. What Dallas needs is a defensive identity, and more specifically, they need someone who can get after the quarterback at an elite level. Max Crosby is exactly that kind of player. But here is the part that really caught my attention. It is not just about what Crosby does on the field, it is about the mentality he brings with him. This is a guy who sets the tone for an entire team. When you are starting over on the defensive side of the ball with a new defensive coordinator in Christian Parker, you need veterans who can establish a culture of toughness and accountability. Crosby does that every single snap. He plays with a nastiness that is contagious, and when you watch him on film, you can see how his effort elevates everyone around him. That is the kind of presence the Cowboys locker room could absolutely use. Now, what would it take to actually get him? That is where things get complicated. If the Sauce Gardner trade is any indication, and he went for 2 first-round picks, then Crosby might command even more than that. We are potentially talking about multiple first-round picks plus maybe a player or additional compensation. That is a steep price, no doubt about it. But here is the question I want you to think about. Is it worth it? Would you sacrifice that draft capital for a proven star who you know can produce at an elite level? Or would you rather roll the dice in the draft and hope you find someone who develops into that caliber of player? There is no wrong answer here, but it is a conversation the Cowboys front office has to be having right now. And the crazy part is Dallas actually has the pieces to make a trade like this work. They have draft capital. They have cap flexibility if they structure things correctly. And most importantly, they have a window right now where they are trying to compete. This is not a rebuilding team. This is a team that believes it can win, and sometimes when you believe you can win, you have to be aggressive. But wait, because the Crosby situation is only half of the story. Let us talk about Myles Garrett, because his name has also been swirling in trade speculation, and this one is even more fascinating. Garrett was literally the best defensive player in the league last year. We are talking about a generational talent at the edge rusher position. And the Browns are in a tough spot right now. They have a new head coach in Todd Monken. They have major questions at quarterback. And when you look at their roster, it feels like they are a ways away from truly competing in the AFC. So naturally, people start wondering, could Cleveland actually move Garrett? Now, here is where I have to pump the brakes a little bit because the reporting on this is different than the Crosby situation. From everything we are hearing, the Browns remain adamant that they do not want to trade Myles Garrett. And Garrett himself is not making the same kind of public noise he was making last year when there was real tension around his future. Remember, a year ago there were legitimate questions about whether he wanted to stay in Cleveland. And what happened? They signed him to a massive extension. That tells you how the organization views him internally. He is their defensive identity, their franchise anchor, the cornerstone of everything they are building. So why are people still talking about it? Because Combine Week is unpredictable, and every year there is a piece of news that nobody sees coming. Front offices talk. Agents float ideas. Rumors gain oxygen. And sometimes something wild actually happens. The Browns were in essentially the same situation last year, uncertain at quarterback and clearly in need of a rebuild, and they still chose to double down on Garrett. So the logical pushback is, if they did not move him, then why would they move him now? And that is a fair point. But here is the counter-argument. Circumstances evolve. Cap dynamics shift. Organizational philosophies change. And the NFL has a way of surprising everyone when you least expect it. Now let me bring this back to Dallas, because hypothetically speaking, if the Cowboys could somehow acquire Myles Garrett, what would that mean for this team? On paper, it would be absolutely ridiculous. You would instantly have one of the most feared pass rushes in the entire NFL. Offensive coordinators would have to completely change their game plans when facing Dallas. Quarterbacks would be running for their lives. And the ripple effects would be enormous, because when you have an elite edge presence, it makes everyone else on the defense better. Your coverage guys have more time. Your linebackers can play faster. Your entire scheme opens up. That is the power of having a true game wrecker on the defensive line. But here is the reality check, and I have to be honest with you. Based on current information, this does not appear to be happening. The Browns are not shopping Garrett. There is no confirmed offer on the table. This is speculation fueled by circumstance, not sourced momentum. And there is a big difference between those two things. So where does that leave us as Cowboys fans? In the space between possibility and probability. Is it possible that something unexpected happens? In the NFL, almost anything is possible. Is it probable based on what we are hearing right now? No, it is not. And that is an important distinction. This is not a breaking trade story. This is a temperature check. A reminder that Combine Week is unpredictable. A reminder that elite defensive players always spark conversation. And a reminder that the Cowboys, like everyone else, are watching and evaluating every opportunity that might present itself. The real question is not whether it is happening right now, because it is not. The real question is, if the door ever cracked open, would Dallas be aggressive enough to walk through it? Let me give you my honest take on this. The Cowboys need to be in attack mode this offseason. We have seen what happens when this team plays it safe and relies on internal development alone. Sometimes you need to make a splash. Sometimes you need to acquire a difference maker who can change the trajectory of your season. Whether that is Max Crosby or someone else entirely, the mindset has to be about winning now. Dak is not getting younger. CD is in his prime. The window is open and you have to capitalize on it. Now, does that mean mortgaging the future for one player? Not necessarily. It means being opportunistic. It means doing your homework on every potential move. It means being ready to pounce when the right situation presents itself. And here is what nobody is really talking about. The Cowboys coaching staff has to be a factor in these conversations too. Christian Parker is coming in as the new defensive coordinator, and he is going to want to put his stamp on this unit. What better way to do that than to bring in a veteran leader who can help install that culture from day one? Players like Crosby or Garrett are not just talented, they are influential. They command respect in the locker room. They hold their teammates accountable. They raise the standard for everyone around them. That intangible value is sometimes just as important as the on-field production. Now let us also talk about the financial reality, because I know some of you are thinking about cap space. Any move for an elite pass rusher would require serious financial maneuvering. These guys are not cheap. Garrett just signed a massive extension. Crosby has a reasonable deal, but it is still significant money. The Cowboys would have to be creative with how they structure any potential acquisition. Maybe that means extending some current players to create cap room. Maybe that means making a corresponding move to free up space. Maybe it means accepting that you are going Allen for a specific window and being comfortable with that approach. These are the kinds of decisions that define franchises. And right now the Cowboys have a decision to make about what kind of team they want to be. I also want to address something else that came up in recent discussions around the league. The Kyler Murray situation. Now, this is not directly related to Dallas, but it is worth mentioning because it shows how volatile the quarterback market is right now. Murray might be released by the Cardinals, and if that happens, several teams would be interested. The Colts have been mentioned. The Vikings have been mentioned. When you see a former number 1 overall pick potentially hitting the market, it reminds you that nothing is permanent in the NFL. Players move. Situations change. And the teams that stay ready are the ones that capitalize when opportunities arise. Alright, let me bring this home because I know I have given you a lot of information to process. Here is the bottom line. The Cowboys are being mentioned in conversations about elite defensive players, and that alone tells you something about where this franchise stands. We are not a team that people dismiss. We are not a team that gets left out of the discussion. When the biggest names in football are potentially available, Dallas gets brought up because the league knows the Cowboys are trying to compete. Now, whether anything actually materializes remains to be seen. The Crosby situation seems more plausible than the Garrett situation based on current reporting. But both conversations are worth monitoring as we move through Combine Week and into free agency. My message to you is simple. Stay locked in. This offseason is going to move fast, and there will be developments that nobody predicts. If you want to stay ahead of all of it, make sure you are subscribed to this channel because we are going to be covering every single update as it happens. I want to know what you think though. Should the Cowboys be aggressive in pursuing an elite pass rusher like Max Crosby? Would you be willing to give up multiple first-round picks for that kind of difference maker? Or do you think Dallas should stay disciplined and build through the draft? Drop your take in the comments because I read every single one and I want to hear from the Cowboys Nation. This is what the offseason is all about. Big questions. Big possibilities. And the hope that maybe, just maybe, this is the year Dallas makes the move that changes everything. Until next time, stay loud, stay passionate, and keep repping that star. We out.